Well, hey, this is Blaine Ehrlich. I'm an RN at Crestwood PCCU, and I got a thing I want to talk to you guys about as we're sitting here at lunch. It's the theory of master by Janet B. Younger. So she talks about dealing with stress, and it's the dealing with stress has to do with mastery. And mastery is a human response to difficult and stressful circumstances in which competency, control, and domination have been gained over the experience of stress. Mastery explains how individuals experience illness and other stressful health conditions. So stress actually can make us stronger if we know how to manage it and master it. So think about the Taekwondo master who is a third degree black belt. In the beginning, at what as a white belt level, didn't master stress very well, but now through practice and experience and learning and openness to new knowledge, finds a way to master it. So we don't emerge demoralized and vulnerable, but instead healthy and possibly stronger. And it's a fundamental and existential problem. Stress exists everywhere, and there's no way to avoid it. I mean, there's gravity wherever we walk. So the results of stress, well, we blame and search for a cause. Our ego tells us to find a reason, and we want to blame that reason and get angry at that reason. We have an emergent call to arms, and we end up coping with it in difficult and probably not effective and healthy ways. Alcohol, drugs, aggression, resentment, meanness, eventual confrontation through people around us telling us to get over it. We retreat and turn inward, and instead accepting love as a gift, we in turn we echo hate and distrust and anger back towards people as they tell us to get over it. So intrusion and irrational ideas, we catastrophic numbing of emotions, again, turning inward, Facebook, internet, alcohol, drugs, whatever. As we live these conscious daydreams, as we go through over and over the stress of what happened over and over again, and never really accepting help. To value someone as a teammate is to accept their help rather instead of offering them help. So when our spouse or our friends or our coworkers try to help us, we accept them as a teammate by letting them help us. We change our reality. We create dysphoria, basically a state of unease and generalized dissatisfaction with life by our negotiation of stress. We search for this dynamic steady state. We try to find what's right and wrong as we deal with stress. If we just give it value, though, we may find that dealing with stress is healthy and beneficial to our growth. So we find a balance with the reality-oriented adaptations. Like the serenity prayer, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. The real value in there is knowing the difference. And that's what we're going to cover now. So in spite of it all, most individuals can achieve a quality of life and a level of fulfillment equal to or exceeding their prior levels. So as we negotiate and navigate through these stressful things in our lives, we find improvements in other areas. While we negotiate stress at work, we may find now, because we've negotiated healthfully, a better relationship with our spouse or our children, maybe even our dog or cat. But how is mastery achieved, and how is this callous of spirit earned? Well, the ego wants to tell us otherwise. It wants more knowledge. It wants more explanations. It wants more reason. It wants more understanding, and it wants us to know it all. And by knowing it all, we don't gain power. But knowing the reasons why X, Y, and Z happen is not always available. It isn't possible to know all that is available to be known. And the ego tells us it would be better if we in fact knew more, but that's not true. Like the car accident that we drive by, seeing that car accident does us no good. It doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help us. And in fact, if we were the ones that were in the car accident, would be spiteful and angry towards those that were looking at us. The ego wants to know all. So the nurse's role, well, that's a Greek thing. If we use this theory of mastery, we can help diagnose and formulate a plan for these patients that are having these stressful scenarios. And assisting patients in their efforts to help themselves allows them to discover their own respective mastery. So instead of enabling them and taking that stress away, rather educating them and helping them find that capacity to survive the stress. So I say it's a Greek thing because epistos, I believe I pronounced that perhaps incorrectly, the Greek philosopher observed in his manual where he talks about soldiers in the Greek army, where they were able to master so many things. And what he realized was that they mastered their thoughts, their impulses, their will to get, and their will to avoid. And things in their power by nature are free and unhindered. Where the things that they didn't have control over, or that didn't have power over, was their body, their property, their reputation, and office. So the things that were out of their control, the things no matter how many times you try to control how old your body was getting or the respect you got in town, you just couldn't control those things because those things were based on somebody else. those things were cruxed and hung on the coat hooks of those other individuals other than the soldiers themselves. And he said, of course, Viktor Frankl, who is a Holocaust survivor who lost his pregnant wife, parents to the Holocaust, he survived himself and wrote a book, Man's Search for Meaning, where Gordon Allport writes in his prologue or his introduction that all the familiar goals in life are snatched away. What alone remains is the last human freedoms, the ability to choose one's attitude in a given set of circumstances. And he goes on to say, give credit to the Stoics' wisdom. To live is to suffer, to survive is find meaning in the suffering and in the dying. These ideas are the essence of mastery, and you could read those three there. So basically what he's talking about is accepting the realities of the stress, accepting the realities of the injury, and accepting that our responsibility is in how we act based on those. Not that we find self-fault in the circumstances of those stresses. So if we injure ourselves, we stub our toe on the table, it's not the table's fault. It may not even be our fault, but how we act is our responsibility. And the results of mastery, we have improvements in psyche, substantial improvement in empathy, greater capacity and resourcefulness, and a well-defined list of things in and out of their control, as well as a peaceful approach to both. Bruce Lee said it best, don't feel failure. Not failure, but low aim is the crime. In great attempts, it is glorious even to fail and fall. So basically what he's saying there too is error causes improvement. To mess up causes greatness. It instills learning. It instills a capacity to accept the things that we cannot change. And it also shows that there's a whole bunch more to learn, and to never forget that. There is another side of the coin, though. Hopeful SE states that direct control aspects of mastery may actually cause frustrations, where this control pursuit is inappropriate at times. So additional information and data regarding the situation, though our attempts at mastery, further knowledge frequently does not lend itself to overall mastery. Again, the ego is trying to control us. It's trying to convince us. So how you do anything is how you do everything. And this is really kind of the point of the whole article. Mastery will come when you admit that nothing is known and that all our truest and most sincere passion is our love to learn and get better so that we can be better than we were yesterday. We must always remember that knowledge is not power, but rather power is a surrendering the fact that we know nothing, but are willing to grow in our own ignorance. Thanks for listening, and let's have another burrito.